Garage.
Garage. A building for keeping one or more cars or other vehicles in. For example, a double garage equals 1 for 2 cars.
Gear. Equipment in a vehicle that changes the relation between engine speed, or pedal speed on a bicycle, and the speed of the wheels moving forwards or backwards. For example, careless use of the clutch may damage the gears.
Gentle.
Gentle. Calm and kind, doing things in a quiet and careful way. For example, a kind and gentle man.
Gravity.
Gravity. The force that attracts objects in space towards each other, and that on the Earth pulls them towards the center of the planet, so that things fall to the ground when they are dropped. For example, Newton's law of gravity. Harbor. An area of water on the coast, protected from the open sea by strong walls, where ships can shelter. For example, several boats lay at anchor in the harbor.
Healthcare. The service of providing medical care. For example, the costs of healthcare for the elderly.
Investigate.
Investigate. To carefully examine the facts of a situation, an event, a crime, etc. to find out the truth about it or how it happened. For example, the FBI has been called in to investigate.
Jet. A plane driven by jet engines. For example, a jet aircraft fighter airliner.
Judgment. The ability to make sensible decisions after carefully considering the best thing to do. For example, good, poor, or sound judgment.
Junction. The place where 2 or more roads or railway lines meet. For example, it was near the junction of City Road and Old Street.
Key. To put information into a computer using a keyboard. For example, key something.
Kind. Caring about others, gentle, friendly, and generous. For example, a very kind and helpful person.
Lane. A narrow road in the country. For example, winding country lanes.
Laptop. A small computer that can work with a battery and be easily carried. For example, I opened my laptop and started typing.
Lay. To put somebody or something in a particular position, especially when it is done gently or carefully. For example, lay somebody or something plus adverb prep.
Leadership. The state or position of being a leader. For example, a leadership role or position. Lift. A machine that carries people or goods up and down to different levels in a building or a mine. For example, it's on the 6th floor, let's take the lift. Live. Broadcast at the time of an actual event, played or recorded at an actual performance. For example, the show is going out live.
Load. To put a large quantity of things or people onto or into something. For example, load something.
Lorry.
Lorry. A large vehicle for carrying heavy loads by road. For example, a lorry driver.
Management.
Management. The activity of running and controlling a business or similar organization. For example, a career in management.
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing. The business or industry of producing goods in large quantities in factories, etc. For example, many jobs in manufacturing were lost during the recession.
Marriage. The legal relationship between two people who are married to each other. For example, the happy and unhappy marriage.
Mechanic. A person whose job is repairing machines, especially the engines of vehicles. For example, a car/motor mechanic.
Mechanical. Operated by power from an engine. For example, a mechanical device, a toy, a clock.
Membership. The state of being a member of a group, a club, an organization, etc. For example, membership of something.
Merger. The act of joining two or more organizations or businesses into one. For example, if the merger goes through.
Militia. A group of people who are not professional soldiers but who have had military training and can act as an army. For example, he said he would call out the state militia if the rebels did not surrender.
Moral.
Moral. Standards or principles of good behavior, especially in matters of sexual relationships. For example, young people these days have no morals.
Mosque. A building where Muslims go to worship, equals praise God. For example, I used to pray at the local mosque with my father and grandfather.
Motor.
Motor. Having an engine, using the power of an engine. For example, the street is closed to motor vehicles.
Motor.
Motor. Having an engine, using the power of an engine. For example, the street is closed to motor vehicles.
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle. A road vehicle with two wheels, driven by an engine, with one seat for the driver and often a seat for a passenger behind the driver. For example, he never learned to ride a motorcycle or to drive a car.
Motorist. A person driving a car. For example, the accident was reported by a passing motorist.
Navigation. The skill or the process of planning a route for a ship or other vehicle and taking it there. For example, a maker of in-car navigation systems.
Neglect. The fact of not giving enough care or attention to something or somebody, the state of not receiving enough care or attention. For example, the buildings are crumbling from years of neglect. Neglect. The fact of not giving enough care or attention to something or somebody, the state of not receiving enough care or attention. For example, the buildings are crumbling from years of neglect.
Network.
Network. A complicated system of roads, lines, tubes, nerves, etc. that are connected to each other and operate together. For example, a rail/road/canal network.
Noble. Having or showing fine personal qualities that people admire, such as courage, honesty, and care for others. For example, a noble leader. Note. To notice or pay careful attention to something. For example, note something.
Nursing.
Nursing. The job or skill of caring for people who are sick or injured. For example, a career in nursing. Optical. Connected with the sense of sight or the relationship between light and sight. For example, optical effects.
Organization. A group of people who form a business, club, etc. together in order to achieve a particular aim. For example, he's the president of a large international organization.
Organized.
Organized. Involving large numbers of people who work together to do something in a way that has been carefully planned. For example, an organized body of workers.
Ownership. The fact of owning something. For example, a growth in home ownership.
Package. To put something into a box, bag, etc. to be sold or transported. For example, package something.
Packet. A small container made of paper or card in which goods are packed for selling. For example, a packet of biscuits/cigarettes/crisps.
Parade. A public celebration of a special day or event, usually with bands in the streets and decorated vehicles. For example, the Lord Mayor's Parade.
Park. An area of public land in a town or a city where people go to walk, play, and relax. For example, Hyde Park.
Parking.
Parking. The act of stopping a vehicle at a place and leaving it there for a period of time. For example, there is no parking here between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Partnership. The state of being a partner in business. For example, to be in, to go into partnership.
Pass. To achieve the required standard in an exam, a test, etc. For example, I'm not really expecting to pass first time.
Passenger.
Passenger. A person who is traveling in a car, bus, train, plane, or ship and who is not driving it or working on it. For example, airline/cruise/rail/bus passengers.
Petrol. A liquid obtained from petroleum, used as fuel in car engines, etc. For example, to fill a car up with petrol.
Pipeline. A series of pipes that are usually underground and are used for carrying oil, gas, etc. over long distances. For example, there are plans to lay a gas pipeline through the region.
Place. To put something in a particular place, especially when you do it carefully or deliberately. For example, he placed his hand on her shoulder. Plane. A flying vehicle with wings and one or more engines. For example, a passenger fighter military private plane.
Planet. A large round object in space that moves around a star, such as the Sun, and receives light from it. For example, the planets of our solar system.
Platform. The raised flat area next to the track at a train station where you get on or off the train. For example, British English.
Port. A town or city with a harbour, especially one where ships load and unload goods. For example, a container fishing ports.